Can you believe that these different sounds come from one keyboard? Yes, the power is in your hands. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. If you buy a mechanical keyboard and don't like the sound or want to shape it differently, it is entirely possible. A huge number of us have always been chasing the proverbial thock or deep sound, while there's a big camp of people wanting the clack or high-pitched sound. And I realize there are quite a bit of people out there that want no sound at all, silent. They're the boring ones. I'm just kidding. They're the ones with jobs. Anyway, so how is this achieved? That is what I want to show you today. I haven't been able to do one of these science-y educational videos in a while, so it's been a long time coming. And it's probably going to be a long video. So let's get started. So in order to prove that you don't need an exclusive group-buy keyboard to sound mod, today I will demonstrate this with an off-the-shelf gaming one, the latest Razer Blackwidow V4 PRO 75%. I remember modding the non-pro version earlier this year and was able to achieve some great results, so let's try this again. Plus, Razer was more than happy to send out a few of these guys for me to tinker with, so many thanks to you. When you're trying to modify the keyboard sound, right, the typing sound of a keyboard, there are quite a bit of things to consider. Let's go through them all, shall we? Well, not all, but a lot of the important ones. So first of all, you have to pick out the right components for the right job. So these are all interchangeable components that strategically impact the sound of the keyboard. First of all, the keycaps. While they may seem similar, keycaps come in various different profiles, materials, and construction that definitely can impact how it sounds. For example, bigger generally means deeper. What's interesting is that the ever-popular cherry profile is actually one of the smallest in terms of volume, hence, it will deliver a higher pitched sound. On the other hand, a larger profile like the MT3 or the SA effectively has much more volume, generally delivering a deeper sound. Now, materials matter also. While keycaps can be made of pretty much anything I feel like these days, if we stick with, let's say, plastics, ABS tends to have a higher pitched sound while PBT is lower. It has something to do with material density. Generally, a denser material equals a lower pitched sound. Finally, the construction. As denser materials deliver lower pitch, heavier or thicker materials also do the same thing. So when you look at like keycaps, the thickest, largest, and the densest ones will be the deepest sounding. Generally, from what I have seen, a dye sublimated PBT is usually thicker than double shot, which delivers a deeper sound then, right? Yes, there are keycaps now made with like ceramic or aluminum, and yes, given the massive weight of these keycaps, they do deliver very deep sound. But I believe that's like on the extreme end, right? As a quick summary, if you stick with plastic keycaps, a cherry profile ABS double shot would generally be on the higher pitch, clackier end, while a SA or MT3 profile keycap, especially in dye sub PBT, will deliver the lowest or the thockiest sound. Ceramics and metals will be like in the super thock category. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, switches. These days, there are so many different switches with so many different materials. While I can't cover all the variations in this video, let me just give you a few pointers, right? While the density of the material impacts sound, so does its stiffness. And those two things are not directly related. Given materials like nylon, PC, POM, UHMWPE, and mixtures of all this, what I have experienced is that the balance between the density and stiffness of the plastic plays a part of its sound profile. For example, POM is a fairly denser plastic. At the same time, it's also very stiff. Hence, many switches featuring POM stems and housings tend to be on the clackier or higher pitched sound. Nylon is also a very popular material and sits somewhere like in the middle in terms of pitch. PC generally delivers a lower pitch sound, while something like UHMWPE and its variants delivers generally a deep pitch given the softness of UHMWPE. So, I would say this is the order of sound pitch when it comes to plastic materials in switches. But also keep in mind, the housing design, the stem design, the length, all of these things play a part in determining the switch's sound pitch. So with switches, it's really hard to know unless you're going to start playing around with it just in general, right? I have seen both clacky and thocky switches made of the same material. Now, when it comes to silent switches, they are actually designed completely different. They usually have a softer, damper material that helps to reduce the bottom out force, illuminating the sound altogether. Now let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, foams and fillers. I think the general convention is that adding foam to a keyboard makes it deeper in terms of sound. Well, not quite. I think I have tried to explain this before in another video, but let's jump into this topic a little bit more, right? So how foam actually impacts the sound of the keyboard is its ability to take sound energy, a mechanical energy, and turn it into heat. As a sound wave goes through foam, it gets absorbed and then gets reduced and generates a little bit of heat, right? Now we need to understand the difference between high pitch and low pitch sound. Higher pitch sound, or clacky as we call it, has high frequency type of sound wave. This kind of wave is not very good at penetration and can easily be controlled with like the lightest foams. Now on the other hand, a low pitch sound or thocky sound has low frequency and is much more adept at penetrating different mediums. Given this, thin open cell foams are not quite effective at reducing this kind of sound wave. So one needs to understand that you need a denser, closed cell foam to reduce low frequency or thock sounds, while light open cell foams are good enough for high frequency or clack sounds. So here is a quick rule of thumb. Thin and airy foams for high pitch sound reduction, and thick and dense foams for low pitch sound reduction. So what does that even mean? Well, more foam you stuff into your keyboard will actually start to reduce not only the high pitch sound, but also the low pitch sound. So if you want to have a deep keyboard, don't shove too much foam into it. You just need the right amount of the right kind. This is what I have experienced. If you want to just reduce the amount of high pitch sound and make your keyboard thocky, go with something really light, like very little amount of polyfill. This kind of filler helps to reduce the high frequency and leaves most of the lows intact. If you want to make a clackier sounding keyboard, then go with something like mineral wool with a reflection layer on the top so you can absorb the low frequency sounds and reflect back the high frequency sound with that layer. Remember, high frequency sounds can't penetrate things very well. One last thing to note. As a rule of thumb, a heavier material is deeper in sound than lighter material. Like, take a listen to this real quick. If you do want to create a deeper sounding keyboard, making the overall case or the housing heavier will also make the keyboard have a lower frequency when it comes to structural sound. However, heavier something gets, the more energy it requires to excite it, so you will end up creating also a quieter keyboard as well if you do have a heavier case. I know these days most keyboards are like loaded with PE and PET sheets and tape modding. These types of mods actually completely change the sound character of the keyboard and not just pitch it up or down. Generally, PE foam does emphasize the mid-range frequencies quite a bit, while tape mod also bumps up like the mid-low and then like the mids in general. You can also use these mods to further enhance your overall sound customization as well. But in this situation, we're gonna worry about the up and the down. Now, with all that said, let's go into the actual modding, shall we? The keyboard we'll be using today is the Razer Blackwidow V4 PRO 75%. This is Razer's latest foray into an enthusiast-centric gaming keyboard with many features that elevate it beyond like a lot of the typical gaming keyboards out there. Razer was successful in launching the original Blackwidow V4 75%, which was fairly well received earlier this year. One thing I did note about that keyboard, why is it not wireless? Well, that's where the Pro in the Blackwidow V4 Pro comes from now. It takes a lot of the great aspects of the standard Blackwidow and adds an OLED screen right here, and also both the 2.4 GHz and the Bluetooth wireless. What is nice about the 2.4 GHz wireless is that it has true 4K polling with the help of the high-speed wireless dongle that's also provided. So this keyboard is actually quicker than even most wired keyboards out there, which just only has 1K polling rate. So that is pretty impressive over wireless. The increase in features and performance does drive up the cost though, right? The new Pro version comes in at $299, which is not a cheap keyboard in this situation. The Pro version comes with OEM profile double-shot PBT keycaps. While not the thickest keycap out there, it does provide a durable finish with decent overall feel. Underneath it is Razer's latest orange tactile switches, which these are actually surprisingly good. They're very smooth and very tactile, unlike some of the options out there from like a lot of the pre-built and ready-made keyboards, right? While you have other options, I think the yellow and the green ones, I would suggest you go with the orange. This is the best one I think out of the three. The Blackwidow Pro comes equipped with the FR4 plate, which is a happy medium when it comes to plates. As with the original Blackwidow 75%, the Pro is also gasket mounted and does provide a nice and soft, dampened typing experience. It won't be like a gaming keyboard, right? Unless it has massive RGB, which this does, right? It doesn't just have per key RGB, but it also features this RGB LED side strip that adds a little flair to your desktop. And finally, the OLED screen. The Blackwidow Pro has a nice and intuitive button and scroll wheel design that allows you to flip through the many functions of the OLED screen, like the graphics, the connection, and more. You can also customize this further with the Blackwidow Razer software as well. In addition to the keyboard, the Blackwidow V4 Pro does come with some goodies in the box, like keycap puller and switch puller, nice cable, extra switches, the ultra-fast wireless dongle obviously, as well as a wrist rest. Okay, before we change anything though, let's listen to how this thing sounds originally. Okay, so the standard Blackwidow actually has a nice sound overall and has a fairly medium level sound signature in my opinion. I would not classify this as a clacky keyboard at all, nor is it absolutely a thocker of a keyboard. The stock format of the Blackwidow does feature some foam, right? Actually pretty thin and lightweight foam in the lower case, as well as like, lighter foam in the plate. So as mentioned before, this kind of foam is pretty much just helping to like shave off a little bit of the high frequency on the top. While the upper case of the keyboard is aluminum, the lower case is actually a thinner plastic. I'm sure they did this for like the wireless transmission and its effectiveness, but from a sound perspective, it's going to create a thinner, higher pitched sound signature. Finally, while Razer did decide to use a tape mod to boost the mids and like the low mids, they decided not to go with P sheet or PT on the PCB, which I actually do admire. Okay, how about we try to make this clacky then? Let's give it a go. As I said before, let's go through the component selection process. To create a clackier sound, I'm going to go with a set of cherry profile ABS double shot keycaps from ePBT. Generally, I felt that ePBT keycaps, especially in ABS, has a higher pitched sound signature, and the ABS and double shot and cherry profile will definitely emphasize that even more. For switches, I am going with a set of HMX Azure linears. These linears are a various blend of nylons, and overall I noticed that they deliver a fairly clacky or high-pitched sound signature. Finally, let's go into the case modding. As I mentioned before, if you want to up the higher pitch, we need to absorb the low-pitched sound. For that, I'm going to use some mineral wool. Mineral wool is utilized in the home insulation and is very effective at absorbing low-pitched sound frequencies, right? It's usually put into the walls. However, given its characteristic, it also absorbs some of the high pitch away. In order to keep the high and just target the low, I'm going to use a thin sheet of PET above the mineral wool to bounce back the high-pitched sound while allowing the low-pitched sound to get through it, it penetrates really well, and get absorbed by the wool beneath. Finally, since the tape mod on this PCB is amping up low, mid, and mid-tones, I will be removing this. So this is the final product. How does it sound? Let's take a listen. Yup, that is pretty clacky. The combination of those components and the mods really do emphasize the high-end pitch of this keyboard sound quite a bit. Now, what about the other end? Let's make this Razer thocky. As with the Clack, let's start with the components first. Like I said before, for that deep sound, the keycaps need to be either bigger or thicker or both. I could have jumped straight into something like MT3 keycaps here, but for the sake of keeping consistency between the builds, I'm going to use a set of cherry profile PBT die sub keycaps. Plus, going straight to the MT3 will be cheating, right? And given that most people prefer cherry profile, it would make it also somewhat less relevant, so for switches, I'll be going with the set of Keygeek oat linears. While the oat linears also feature a nylon housing, it's actually using PA6 nylon, which is a softer type. In addition, the LDPE stem, the L4 stem that this uses is very soft, creating for a deep sounding switch overall. Finally, the case modding. In order to maximize the deep sounds, we have to make the lower plastic case a bit heavier. For this, I'll be adding a bit of Plastilina Clay. This stuff is very dense and heavy and is a good way to increase weight for plastic keyboards. It also stays soft forever, so just a thin lower layer will do here. You can also go with the steel balls that I have done before with the previous Razer, but that requires so much more work. After the Plastilina, I'm going to use an airy layer of Polyfill. Polyfill does a good job of controlling the higher pitch without impacting the low pitch that much. While we removed the tape mod in the previous mod, for the Thock build, I actually need to be putting it back on. So, with all of this, how does a Thock Razer sound? Let's check it out. Yup, as expected, the combination of the thocky components and the case modding, it really helped to bring out the low end of the keyboard quite well. Well, I say low and mid is pretty emphasized. Okay, you might be asking, what if I want super thock? Thock that shakes the desk kind of thock? Well, then go for something like ceramic or metal keycaps. For fun, I'm going to throw on a set of the Octopus aluminum keycaps and see what happens. If that's not thocky, I'm not sure what is anymore. Okay, so we did enough playing around with the sounds, right? The high and the low. What about for those that just don't want any sound, right? Like the office worker. This is probably the most simple kind of mod, honestly. It's very much just switch dependent. Remember the quietest keyboard I have built in the past? Yes, the work-centric Windex 98 to not get fired. In that keyboard, I created a special Franken switch called the MX Silence and created the most silent work keyboard imaginable. Since Silence are expensive and a pain to make, I opted for one that was pre-made this time and also pretty nice, the Epomaker Seasalt Silence. The Silence switches either suppress the bottom out by either using a soft silicone damper or using flexible legs like in this case with the Seasalts. So how do these sound, or rather not sound? Let's find out. That is what I'm talking about. The switches themselves work wonders in silencing the alphas overall. Alright, I hope that helps to summarize and gives you a bit of technical background in terms of how to shape the keyboard sound. I know I have said this before, but the power to shape the keyboard sound, it's actually absolutely in your hands. And it doesn't matter what kind of keyboard it is. It can be an expensive, exclusive group buy keyboard like one of the Win series, or more accessible gaming keyboards like the Razer Blackwidow, like the standard or pro or whatever you want to use. With the right components and the technical know-how, you can truly create a custom version that fits your liking, whether it's Clack or Thock or something in between. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more content for you in the future. Thanks.